So businesses are starting to get concerned what will actually happen when Republicans take control of Congress. Like shutting down the government again. Businesses are actually concerned about this because Republicans shut down the government all the time over anything whatsoever. But the thing is, current Republicans are sane in comparison to the crop that we're getting next. And these Republicans we got now are complete whack jobs to the ones that we had 4 years ago, and 4 years before that, and 4 years before that. Republicans are getting worse. And yet, businesses haven't got the clue that this is what Republicans do. They run the country into the ground because they don't know how to govern. In the last 40 years, full Democratic control has never shut down the government. It's always been Republicans. Even when Donald Trump was in office and he had both Congresses, he shut down the government because they're bad at governing. It should tell you that, big cities are in blue states and, well, those are where the good economies are. And Republican presidents always mess up the economy. So why are businesses now being concerned? Because they think they will actually take control and shut down the government over, removing the $10,000 debt forgiveness that Biden did. I mean, think of all the things that Republicans have shut down the government for before. And now the current crop is whack jobs. What exactly is going to come next? See, here's a quote from Neil Bradley. There's always this argument and debate about whether the debt limit is leverage. The reality is it's a hostage you can't shoot. But Republicans have shot this hostage multiple times. The fact that he is pretending it can't happen is just cover for the Republicans. 40 years, never under Democrats. Always happens because of Republicans. So, here's the thing. The debt limit is an absurd piece of legislation that Biden should just say, I'm going to ignore this because it's unconstitutional. Because Congress not only passes a bill saying that Biden has to pay for this, they also passed a bill that says Biden isn't allowed to spend money. So they do both. And usually the debt limit is passed first. What happens when you pass a law second? It becomes the law. So pretending that this debt limit is an hostage that you are actually going to shoot is ridiculous. I mean, they passed the debt limit saying, we're not going to spend any more than this. Then they passed a law and said, we're going to spend this money. Second law trumps the first. And Biden should take it that way. Stop pretending. Pass a law or just, call Congress into sessions for 18-hour days until they actually pass a real bill. Stop all this stopgap spending plans. Republicans attack private business for doing what they want to do. Because you're allowed to do whatever you want unless you upset Republicans. Even though before you were allowed to do it. Whatever the current Republican thing is, that you're not allowed to do. But everything else you got the freedom as long as no Republican gets upset. So Virginia Atlantic has changed their uniform standards and allowed their workers to decide what uniforms that they are going to wear. So, you get to choose what type of uniform you get to wear. And Republicans are losing their minds over this. So much so that they didn't actually even think ahead before they started screaming out, because that is all they do. Paul Joseph Watson tweeted, "Pretty bigoted how they're still maintaining male and female toilets on the plane. I want to see that shit show of gender-neutral bathrooms unfold at 30,000 feet. Gender-neutral bathrooms on a plane. Never been in one that didn't have them." So Republicans are screaming and yelling about stuff that, is currently reality and how somehow is going to screw everything up. Pretending Republicans have any idea what they're talking about is only perverting what we should actually talk about. Republicans are morons, and they have used gender-neutral bathrooms throughout their life in their home. So, let's say it together. Listening to what Republicans say, other than just to make fun of their dummies, is wrong. Majewski, the QAnon habitual liar, was found to be lying again. And somehow it's our fault that he has to lie to us. And this is a prime example of how the media has failed the American people. Because if this can be the general election candidate and still be talked about as, he could win, the media has failed the United States. So, Majewski, he is the QAnon guy who posted QAnon, supported QAnon, made a big show of it, and now he has absolutely no clue whatsoever. And the media is buying that story. So, he's also the one that, said he was in Special Forces. And, of course, his record doesn't actually show that because they were classified. So, if any of that nonsense was actually true, he was violating classified information. But no, the media just skates right over that because they need to talk about what's next. So, Majewski said he was punished for having a brawl in the Air Force. However, his military record shows that's another lie. His punishment was for drunk driving in Japan in September 2021. So he defended himself, and it's our fault. Listen to this Republican lie, and the media does not take him to task for this stupidity. This mistake is now more than 20 years old. I'm sure we all done something as young adults that we look back on and wonder, what was I thinking? I'm sure our parents and grandparents share these sentiments. It's true. There's always something in our past that, we regret. However, does he regret lying over and over on his campaign? Is the media gonna regret covering his next lie? So, he served in the military. Great. So how was his military service other than lying about, being a special forces agent, doing classified missions, and, being drunk and driving around? So, Eric Mayer, a former West Point graduate and Army infantry officer turned military lawyer, reviewed Majewski's record, and he concludes, the overall nature and quality of Majewski's military service can be severely questioned simply by virtue of the fact that he's got out as an E2 after 4 years. You can enter the military as an E4. Now, he was busted down to an E2, never being able to accomplish anything. It really shows why he fell for QAnon, because it's a cult for stupid people to make themselves feel better. If you're incompetent, you're much more likely to, fall into it. So he lied about his service over and over, lied about being a manly man and having a bar brawl because that was good. And he's stupid enough to believe QAnon. He's completely unfit for any elected office. And the media in this country will still allow him to get away with blatant lies. So China is having some serious issues of late. They have built their entire country on a house of cards. You have their massively overbuilt civilization with tens of millions of homes that are sitting empty because it was, a pyramid scheme, fraud, just sheer stupidity. Everybody was buying real estate, or, because they're Chinese, renting real estate for a couple of decades, because real estate always goes up. And now they have 65 million empty houses. The infrastructure is falling apart because of the massive corruption in the government, giving contracts to people that don't do the job and just skate on through, make it look good, and walk away. See, one of the problems with governments is sometimes they fail. And if you arrest every citizen that complains about it, you will never know what you need to do to make your country better. And that is where China is right now. Over and over again, they stymied any dissent whatsoever. So they have no clue what is wrong. And if you don't know what's wrong, you can't fix it. So Thursday, the Chinese currency fell 0.9% to 7.13 against the dollar. And it's on track for the worst annual decline since 1994, having lost more than 11% so far this year. While a weaker currency can be helpful to get exports, there is a cost for it to be so low. Now, for the fact that the Chinese government is dumping the dollar to artificially prop up their currency can be problematic. What happens when the currency falls even further? Now, China has many loans out to many countries that can't pay them back. And a lot of these loans we don't even know about because China forbids the poor countries that take them from ever saying anything about them. Now, China went big on how to punish their own citizens for shorting the yen. So they built into their system support for the yen. They're dumping US dollars to buy more of it, and they increase the cost of shorting it, and yet is still losing value. So are the constant problems or Has people realized that China is sitting on a house of cards, and if one thing goes, like the strengthening of the US dollar, will it blow the entire Chinese government over and the currency be practically useless? We can only wait and see. So, Nancy Mace, another Republican shill and completely useless person, throws in for more bigotry because that's what the Republican Party is about. Racism, bigotry, and a complete subservience to whoever is in power. So her latest transphobic ads, which shouldn't even be on the air because they're blatant lies, but since they are Republicans, they're allowed to air them. So this transphobia is just the latest of migrants, gays, the devil in D&D. The attacks and the conspiracy theories have already caused Republicans to threaten to bomb hospitals. But yeah, let's let the large corporations that run the media air these ridiculous ads. She attacks her opponent for allowing children gender-affirming care, puberty blockers, and gender-changing hormones, and sex change surgery. It is ridiculous and absurd that these things have to be answered. But this is who the Republicans are. Andrews responds to these ludicrous attacks. I do not support gender-affirming surgery for anyone under 18, nor does my hospital perform those procedures. What I support is evidence-based medical care with parental consent for teens struggling with gender identity issues. Adding she does not practice gender-affirming care, but has supported transgender youth who have attempted suicide. So, they're blatant lies in her ads, but she's allowed to air them on TV. There's a reason why Democrats don't call out Republicans for what they are, because the media is so biased against Democrats that they would gladly tank the election for Democrats if they ever dared tell the truth. When Republicans threaten to bomb hospitals over these delusions, the media should at least not allow blatant lies to be aired on TV. Andrew's response continues. As a mother and a human being, if you have even a shred of dignity left, I ask you to stop these desperate attacks and start behaving like someone our kids can look up to. It is this job in Congress really worth throwing away your self-respect? Are those Fox News appearances that important to your ego? Are low country children really that expendable to you? The truth is, yes. Mace cares more about being on TV than she cares about doing anything for the American people. The reality is, Republicans have failed on policy, and they have failed for decades. That's why all the scientific evidence of 50 years of trickle-down have absolutely no support for being good for the economy or the people of this country or any country in the world. She's a partisan hack. And check out just how awful she really is.
Have you eliminated the prospect of ever supporting Donald Trump for president again?
I'm very much hopeful, and I think you'll see this on both sides of the aisle. You'll see a deep bench of Republicans and Democrats who will be running for president in 24. I hope that's what happens. As you know, I got through a very difficult primary, one of the only Republican House members to do that this election cycle. And I think, the issues that I've been focused on, the state of South Carolina, inflation, the economy, we have to stick to those issues. We have to come over with solutions from Dobbs and Roe v. Wade. And in fact, I had a conversation with Senator Graham on Friday, and he's very open to making that particular bill better. And I've expressed, some of my concerns and my heartburn over certain provisions and details of that legislation. But we have to be substantive. We have to be solution-driven, regardless of who the nominee is for 24 for Republicans. I hope that it's a wide field. I hope that we see a woman on the ticket. Yeah, I'm very excited about the prospects.
It sounds like you're not a never
coming out of the woodworks.
At the end of the day, it sounds like you're not a never Trumper. That if he's the nominee, you're going to support him.
I'm going to support whomever Republicans nominate in 24.
Okay. All right.
Doesn't matter who Republicans put up, she'll vote for the devil themselves. Why? Because she has bought into the conspiracy theories and is completely obedient. Because that is what they are. Republicans can't think for themselves and must follow along like sheep. It's truly sad and pathetic. She's also saying that, she would vote for Graham's national abortion bill if there were some changes to it. So she's all in for banning abortion in every state. And you see how weak the news anchors are on the so-called liberal MSNBC? That they would allow this partisan hack to get away with such weak answers and not having to answer for her willingness to make rape victims bear their rapist child? Yeah. The news media is really the people we should blame about the majority of the problems in this country. So, CNN, like Politico, is moving more towards being Fox News propaganda because the rich people don't think the news media is subservient enough to Republicans yet. So, they're buying up the news organizations that were far right of center and moving them into straight up delusional conspiracy theory area. So S.E. Cupp wastes 3.5 minutes where facts don't matter, reality doesn't matter, and she has no clue what her actual point is. It seems that deep thought, reality, trying to figure out what is actually going on is a complete waste over at CNN now that they have completely worthless people working in every single area. Now, waste 3.5 minutes listening to her stupidity.
A TV personality and a moron who has no business running for president. I'm S.E. Cupp. Welcome to Unfiltered. Now that sounds like something you might hear from a Democrat or even a never-Trumper like me, but that is reportedly what Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a Republican and a longtime ally of Donald Trump, privately called the former president, a former DeSantis staffer, is telling Vanity Fair. The love loss seems to go both ways. According to reporting by Maggie Haberman, Trump has called DeSantis fat, phony, and whiny. Now, this is a far cry from the cozy relationship Trump and DeSantis, often referred to as a mini-Trump, have long enjoyed. It's a relationship that might be turning now that DeSantis is pondering a 2024 run and Trump's fortunes may be shifting. But as so often the case, the courage to criticize Trump, even among Republicans who might want to run against him, is almost always reserved for private conversations. So when will DeSantis get the spine to attack Trump frontally? Not now, apparently. In the wake of the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago, DeSantis defended Trump, tweeting that it was another escalation in the weaponization of federal agencies against the regime's political opponents, while people like Hunter Biden get treated with kid gloves. Earlier this year, on the one-year anniversary of the January 6th insurrection, DeSantis criticized the DC-New York media coverage.
They are going to take this and milk this for anything they could to try to be able to smear anyone who ever supported Donald Trump.
And DeSantis has perpetuated Trump's idea that the 2020 election was rigged, both in policy and in his embrace of election deniers. But DeSantis is seemingly still too afraid of Trump and his voters to take him on publicly. Similarly, over in the House of Representatives, new reporting in the Washington Post reveals House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy worked in private to keep North Carolina problem child Madison Cawthorn from winning a second term. According to the report, targeting Cawthorn was part of a larger behind-the-scenes effort by top GOP donors and senior strategists to purge the influence of Republican factions that seek disruption and grandstanding, often at the expense of their GOP colleagues. McCarthy reportedly went to great lengths to hide these efforts, with money passing from top GOP donors close to him through organizations that do not disclose their donors. But publicly, McCarthy often defended Cawthorn, even saying that despite impolitic remarks about Ukraine, that he would still support Cawthorn's bid for a second term. But why? Why not call out these disrupting, grandstanding characters like Cawthorn and Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, and Lauren Boebert publicly? Well, in the cases of McCarthy and DeSantis, likely it's for their own political self-preservation. How courageous. That's it for me. See you next week.
So why don't Republicans stand up? Because their base doesn't want that. Their base wants bigotry, racism, and stupidity. The Republicans have never been strong. They have always followed along. Reagan said, drowned the government in the bathtub, shrink it down. So Republicans have saying government's the problem ever since. Nixon said the media is out to get us. So the Republicans said the media is out to get us. Every single president on the Republican side of the aisle has added stupidity that everyone has followed along with after that, because they're not smart enough to actually think about what is going on. And CNN contributors and employees are now just as dumb as Republicans. If you want to find out reality, it is definitely not watching CNN. So, Donald Trump thinks Manchin's unhinged and that he should have been brought into the Republican camp years ago. Twitler is so dumb. Sometimes he's right. Manchin is unhinged because he thought Republicans actually liked him. So, here's what the idiot traitor to in the United States said. When people ask what happened to Joe Manchin, why did he go off the rails? The answer is very simple. Mitch McConnell forced his hand by saying that Manchin was weak and ineffective and that McConnell, had him totally under control. Manchin couldn't stand for that and turned strongly not against the Republicans but against McConnell. And he has always despised. The fact is, Joe Manchin should have been brought into the Republican Party long ago. Joe Manchin should have been brought into the Republican Party long ago. But why has he gone off the rails? The fact is, Joe Manchin is completely subservient to fame. McConnell promised him being the moderator for the Democrats and the Republicans coming together and how great it will be for him. And he gets to come on TV and, that's it. McConnell is an attention whore. wants to be on television, wants to be there as a talking head. And he's also blatantly corrupt, putting bills that would benefit him. So, the reality is, yes, McConnell says he completely controls. But the fact is, McConnell isn't lying in this. Manchin destroyed the Build Back Better bill. He got rid of any hope of reforming the filibuster so we can have voting rights protected in this country. Manchin has been the roadblock to, well, let's face it, Democrats getting the supermajority back in Congress. Because the American people want what Biden is offering, and Manchin stopped it. Pretending Manchin isn't the problem is only helping the Republicans. So if you like those videos, please help. The YouTube algorithm is horribly biased against, progressives. And the Republicans have massive amounts of money just to buy it off. So every time you like, every time you put a comment down below, helps us out. So like, subscribe, and if you really want to help the environment, down below is a link to a GoFundMe page where it has a brand new power generation that is 0% carbon emission and one of the cheapest productions of electricity the world has ever had. So go down, help us out.